This is a creative piece from ScribersHive Europe, giving the youth a voice that matters.
Hi guys, welcome back to ScribersHive Europe podcast. Hope you've been well. Now today we have with us, my name is Shifa first of all, and
Christian and Matthew.
And Farah.
On the other side. So last time we talked about what community means to us, and this time we're going to talk about diversity and representation. And to start off, I'm going to go with a good quote by my favorite actor, Riz Ahmed, who said, "It sounds like the fries, not the burger, you know? It sounds like something you put on the side. You got the main thing going on, and yeah, let's sprinkle a little bit of diversity on top of that." So what do you guys think? What's your interpretation of that quote?
Well, I feel like it's really true and close to what's happening in the world today. Diversity is just like something that companies or anything really does to give themselves a good image.
Yeah.
To show like a kind of fake-ish goodwill. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That doesn't have really any meaning to it.
Yeah. And can you tell us where you're from, please?
I'm from France.
Yeah. And how is the diversity in there? Is it like, for example, I'm from London, and I think I can experience a similar kind of feeling. There's certain companies who just want diverse people just to tick a box off. But then there are like other good companies and other good organizations such as UPress who are actually doing it because they want other people to meet up and learn about cultures. So like, how is it in France? Are there certain organizations like this? And
yes, obviously okay. There is. It would be really cynical to say that every organization is like fake in its intentions towards diversity. I can't quote one from the top of my head, but there is, cool. Most definitely.
Amazing. What about you, Christian?
I feel like diversity is a very, very unique thing, especially in London. I realized the difference because I went to Spain, and in Spain.
What did you do in Spain when you were there?
So I was just studying as a student out there, but I realized the diversity is not as much as it would be in certain places in Spain than it is in London.
Right.
When I came back, I just saw so many different ethnicities in one place, and it made me appreciate being from London more. So I'm not too sure about diversity, but I'm big on representation. So I think that diversity and representation go hand in hand.
Yeah.
If you have a diverse workforce, there is a culture in that workforce that you are maintaining, and you're representing something that's bigger than just the company, because you care about providing opportunities to people that may come from different backgrounds and might not have as much opportunities as someone that's born in that country with better communication skills perhaps, or maybe they haven't picked up on certain soft skills. So you're giving more chance to people that may not be as well off as someone that's born in that country. The reason why I brought up Spain is because in Spain, the workforce out there, not a lot of people are finding jobs. But I think that's to do more with a separate subject on unemployment and education.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the diversity is just so different in certain places in Europe. So I didn't know it was like that. I thought I was so oblivious to different countries. I didn't know much. Like when I go to St. Lucia, we don't have much diversity there as well. It's just loads of like people from St. Lucia, but there's not different nations there. So when you go, it's good to understand diversity and representation when you travel.
You
realize it a lot more. But it's a gift to be in London, but you may not even notice how diverse it is in your country until you leave and come back.
100%.
You leave for a while and then you come back and you realize, wow, it's actually quite diverse here.
It is.
So it's it's very interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting topic.
Cool. And Farah, how about you? As the leader of UPress and
I would say it's funny, like when it comes to diversity and representation. Even though like UPress is a small and grassroots organization, so we're very proud that we get to work with very mixture of people with different backgrounds and experiences. Yeah. And our work is very led by the people that we work with. And so we're not big in terms of capacity and in terms of like what other organizations, bigger charity that have the larger resources. But what we find interesting is like the organizations that have the resources to do a lot more, or even 10 times of what we're capable of doing, find it difficult to engage diverse community members. And they would come to us for support. They would have a training coming up or an event, and they'd be like, oh, can you help us out to reach this specific group with this demographic? I'm like, you have the resources and the money and the people to do so, but you're so detached from community, and your workforce doesn't represent the community that you're trying to engage. It makes you think. You think, wow, like where not just us. There's other organizations that go above and beyond when it comes to community and the work that they do. So that needs to change. It needs to change in terms of like structure of how communities are seen, to make it more inclusive and more diverse in terms of the workplace itself as well, and then that leads to positive representation of community members. So it's always interesting to see like the dynamics and how people are seen from different backgrounds as well. And if you even to go deeper outside the organization, there's a complexity when it comes to diversity within cultures and nationalities. Like, give you an example, like my background is Somali, so within Somali there's a plurality of diversity within that, and there's also the representation of one particular group. So we have like certain clans and people that come from the north, south, and they have stereotypes, and then there's the what's it called, representation of that group and that stereotype that goes within the community itself as well. There's a complexity within that itself as well, but not many people know that. And that's just one particular ethnicity. There's the same if you were to look at Asians, South Asians, if you look at different ethnicities 100%. As well. So again, it goes into a bigger aspect of what is diversity within that group and what is the representation. So I find it quite interesting.
I think that obviously the media has a lot to play when it comes to diversity and representation. And for me, as a Muslim girl, and so as a Muslim girl and growing up in London, I've always been grateful for the different types of people that I've met that come from different cultures and experiences. And when I was growing up, I never kind of like had a problem with wearing the headscarf until like I went to Manchester. We lived there for around 6 months. It was really short, but I got to see the difference. Even though it was in the same countries, I got to see the difference between London and Manchester's awareness of like Muslim girls, especially if they were wearing the hijab. So like I remember I was playing with my friends one time, and then I had this girl come up to me, and then she was like, "Are you wearing curtains over your head?" And then I was like, "What?" I've gotten like so many different things, but curtains, like I've never gotten that. And it's just, I think it comes to the lack of representation, especially in the media. Like for example, the BBC. I don't know if you guys watched Bodyguards when it came out, like in September, but it was really popular. And the thing is, I'm really annoyed by it because it had such a good plot and such a good story, but then it had to open up with a Muslim girl who was about to blow herself up. And then as soon as I saw that, I was like, no, not again, no. Then I carried on watching it because, it might change, you never know. And I was just really, really annoyed. I was like, this is not acceptable, and I was just really annoyed. And then, for example, Channel 4 did a really good job at representation when they Ackley Bridge. I don't know if you guys know it, but basically they had it was like a school outside of London in an area that had a lot of Asian communities and a lot of Muslims and a lot of other communities, and when they brought the two schools together, like there was a majority of white people in another school, a majority of an Asian community in another school. They brought them together, and then at first they had problems and things, but then they managed to get along with each other. And what I liked about what Channel 4 did, even though they had a lot of extras, such as the classmates and things, the way they styled the hijab on each girl was so different. Like, if you were to see EastEnders, it would just be like a normal slip-on hijab, which is so annoying. But then Channel 4, they did each girl did her scarf differently, and I was so pleased by that because it showcased our creativity and like our individuality when it comes to dressing up modestly and things like that. So yeah, I wanted to bring up another point actually, and it's also by Riz Ahmed. He created kind of like this scale, this guide that kind of shows if a TV show or a film is doing a good job at representation or not, and he brought up like a list of things. So for example, if the criteria is if the film/show stars at least one character who is identifiably Muslim by ethnicity, language or clothing, is the character 1, talking about the victim or the perpetrator of Islamist terrorism, 2, represented as irrationally angry, 3, presented as superstitious, culturally backwards or anti-modern, 4, represented as a threat to Western ways of life, 5, if the character is male, is he represented as misogynistic, 2, female, is she represented as oppressed by her counterparts. If that's true, then the media has done a very terrible job at representation. So yeah, I found that really, really interesting, and that scale can go to like a lot of different communities as well. For example, black people, I don't know, Romanian people, like anyone. So it would be good to have a lot of like role models who speak up more about the topic of representation, especially actors and celebrities. So yeah,
I think it's really interesting because growing up in London, you know, as a black person as well, you're an easy target for racial discrimination and stuff like that. People just think all you know is a certain type of music, hip hop, or all you know is live by the street code.
Yeah.
And things like that, and you get people ask you weird questions like, "Oh, are you in a gang?" or just random questions like that, but they don't even know you. They'll just ask, or they'll like give like a slur, a racial slur, like, "Oh, what's up, bro?" Or like they'll come up with these words that they associate you with, like "what's up, gangster" or something like that.
Wow.
Like words, stuff like that, and you think in the back of your head, it's cool, whatever, but that's not really who I am. You're just labeling me with something that you saw on the TV, and I may have the same skin color as that person, but it doesn't represent who I am as an individual. So it's funny how you said that, because I can see that as well in my community, like of black people and stuff like that. So yeah, it's quite alarming, and people need to be informed more on a more I don't know, drastic scale, because it's very watered down. They need the real hard facts, if that makes sense, of how to understand different cultures and different people, because they label people as just one. They put everyone in the same box.
Yeah, they love putting people in boxes.
They put everyone in the same box where we're all individuals when it comes to we're collectively the same, but we all think differently. So it's very alarming, and I hope that, you know, the media can be, especially the big companies in the media, they should take a different light on things. And another thing is, it could be just because they try and generate a lot of money from just because they don't think ethically.
Yeah.
They think these big companies just think about money. They just get a headline, and the amount of people that look at that headline, it draws a lot of people. But that's the wrong way to look at it. I think they should approach it from a different angle, because it's really important, and it gives off a bad representation.
Yeah.
That's how I feel.
That kind of reminds me of like this quote I literally found 5 minutes before we were about to create the podcast. It's, if you don't create new worlds to give them you don't create new worlds to give them all the same limits of the old ones. And that was by Jane S. Benson. I think she's a writer. And so do you guys think that representation is much more important than diversity?
I actually wanted to bounce off your talk about the hijab.
Yeah.
That would happen in France like quite a lot, actually.
Right.
As you said, because we're not used to seeing hijabs on the streets. It's like Muslim women can wear the hijab, just not Muslim girls, not in school, for example.
Yeah.
I remember we was having a discussion the other day.
About that, yeah.
Christian found it so hard to believe. He was like, "No, I don't think that's true."
I found it absolutely ridiculous. Like, I don't mean to.
It is ridiculous,
France, but I just mean they need to. It's just ridiculous. I really feel like that needs to change.
Well, in France, there's a fear of religion, so that explains it. But I mean, that's not normal. No, that's totally ridiculous. In school, it's forbidden, and in university, actually, many teachers want the Muslims to take off the hijab while on the premises.
Especially as France is meant to be like a democratic society.
Well,
they label themselves as a democratic society, so how can they? They contradict themselves.
It's
a bit of a contradiction.
That's the French understanding of laicity. Actually, it's weird.
It was quite interesting actually, because there was a recent, I don't know if it was recent, but I remember reading this article, and it was about, I think, Oxfam. No, not Oxfam. Oh my days! I was going to cost the charity. No. It was what's that? Ofsted. Is that the education thing that rates primary schools and things like that? I think it was Ofsted, and they tried doing something like I don't know, banning the hijab. I think when it came to like primary schools, I'm not 100% sure, but it was something to do with like not wanting younger, I don't know, primary school girls to wear the hijab, because they thought, and like they wanted to question the girls as well, why they wanted to wear it, because they thought that they were being sexualized, and they thought that they were being forced. So like that's why they wanted. So that's why they didn't want them to wear it, and they were proper like wanted to question the younger girls, and it's really weird, because like their definition of liberation is not, it's quite contradicting actually, because you want to liberate them, but at the same time you want them to do something that they don't want to do. Do you know what I mean? Like, is that your definition of liberation?
In line with what you were saying as well, like, what is more important, diversity or representation? And I think it all down, like, you know, from what you see is like most of the situations that lead to is stigmatization of someone that is different or other. It's fear. It's because you don't know that person. You don't understand their culture or their historical journey. So it's. I think we're lucky in London. We get to experience diverse
you
cultures. There's no place like that. And you go outside London, you go like maybe more north and so forth. It's completely different. And like you feel as if like you're a stranger in the country that you're already in. And I think there needs to be more opportunity for people to connect and to look for similarities as opposed to differences. And we all share a common trait, which is like we're human beings. We have a need for survival, for growth and development, and we just happen to have cultural, religion, and different perspectives on life. But it's just, I think you can't, like you said, you can't have representation if there's no diversity. Otherwise, it's just there's no need for representation, because it's just one. Why do you need to present one if everyone's just the same? So you need diversity to create that, as the term they use, a melting pot. And I think a lot more work needs to be done. And I think like I always say, like when you're trying to make any change, it always starts small. It starts with the individual first. And then you build your way up that way. We could sit here and complain there's media representation, there's politicians, and there's so many factors and so forth that But if we don't take control of who we are and what we stand for in our communities, we're always just going to be waiting for that sort of, savior to come along. Champion the way, and like we've had like use our history. We've had very inspirational leaders and change makers. But I always say it starts with you. What are you doing? What are you going to do now to represent your community and tackle those stereotypes? So what do you guys think?
Oh yeah, we didn't get your.
So I think to bounce off of what Farah said, I think that London is a prime example of how you can't have diversity without representation, because a lot of people look at London as actually its own sort of country. Like when someone asks you where you're from England, but you'll say I'm from London.
London,
Then wherever you are, like and that's a representation of your community in a sense. Being in a separate, you're in England, but you're saying I'm from London. Because you know that, as you said, like once you go outside of London, it's completely different. It's maybe in the same country. So just to bounce off what you said, I think it's so true. Like you gotta have them both hand in hand, because at the end of the day, wherever you are is wherever you're representing as well at the same time.
Even like like when we came for this ScribersHive Europe, the first day, and I think I was talking to one of the recipients, and she's like, "Oh, where are you from?" I'm like, "I'm from London." And he's like, "What about him?" He's like, "From London." I'm like, and I said to her, "No, specifically, I'm from East London." I think he's from like Northwest, and she was like, "Huh?" Like, isn't it all like just one spot? But there's this diversity in London as well. So there's like different parts of London. There's different communities. So it's just interesting. I was like, oh, I have to explain like there's this is like. But she had this conception like, oh, it's just one spot. Everyone's there. We all live in the same.
It's like what ends you from. It's kind of like that. Having like these like different slang terms is actually interesting as well, because they're not just like slang terms within London and in English, but they're also like slang terms from different languages, like patois, I don't know, like things like wagwan. That's not English, if it makes sense. But even within these like local communities, we have these different words that we communicate with each other. It's just so interesting.
It's another form of representation.
Exactly.
That's what represents London, the colloquial language. As well, do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
It's without that, it wouldn't be London in a sense. Do you know what I mean? All that adds to the pieces of the puzzle of London, like, but also like New York as well. Because a lot of people say New York's like a bigger version of London. Because it's another place where there's so many different ethnicities in one place, and they have their own sort of language outside of the traditional American language.
And they have their own like titles, like I'm a New Yorker.
New York. And where you from? I'm from New York.
It's
from America,
from
but they'll say
Brooklyn
I'm from New York, and then they'll be like, what part? And it's like, so it's so funny. Like I think representation and diversity is like they go hand in hand. They're both separate meanings. But
one
I think
can't
can't be without the other. Because without representation, you just can't have diversity, as you said. Like, I agree with that.
I got a question for you, Matthew. Actually,
sure.
Like whenever I used to travel to Europe, I would say I'm British. I wouldn't say I'm English. I would say I'm British, because English has a different connotation. And then, but the Europeans would be like, "Oh no, you're English." Like they would label me as English. So it's interesting. So, do you guys have another like? Do you say you're French, or do you have another aspect that you?
Oh yeah.
I say I'm French, but concerning British and English, there's in France at least. There's like really people are getting really confused about United Kingdom and England.
Oh.
So they're confusing. They're using one for the other. For the other. So that's where it's coming from. It's just like people getting confused. They're not used in France. We're not used to a country composed of other countries.
Right.
That makes sense.
It's not a common thing anyway. I think it's like a new sort of thing that humans have sort of like we've been able to just form societies within societies. If that makes sense. It's like a new thing. Like we've come out with. We've just decided just to have our own communities within a bigger community. because it works.
Yeah.
It works for our neighborhood, or it works for the people who are around, because we feel more connected doing it. I think
Yeah,
that's
definitely.
why we say things like I'm from London or I'm from New York, whereas in fact you're from America or you're from England.
Yeah, but there's a local identity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Much more.
Yeah.
And I think just to bounce off from Christian's point about what was it, from being from London and how we want to create societies within societies. I think it's a way of, as you mentioned, connecting things as much as possible and making things as much closer to us as possible. And yeah, I think it's a nice way to end off. It's at the end we all just want to be connected with each other. So yeah, thank you guys for listening to another segment of ScribersHive Europe. We hope to see you soon. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, jump on the website, read them articles. Stay woke, kids. And we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.